Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Tropical Tidbits, the official podcast of the Florida Tropics Academy, the fastest growing soccer academy in all of Central Florida. And boy, we have got a fantastic episode for you today. Of course, we are brought to you by CPS Investment Advisors. So if you're a player out there that's even considering playing in the professional level or even at a college level, you're going to want to listen up. You're going to want to stick around because our guest here today is going to give you some tips, some things that you should be thinking about if you want to consider going down that path. Let me give you a couple of background, some pointers on what he has accomplished in not just his career as a head coach, but also as a professional player. Our guest today has been a defender for the Florida Southern Moccasins here locally, right here in Lakeland in his college career. He was a head coach for the Florida Tropics Soccer Club of the MASL, the Major Arena Soccer League, which I, of course, am a super fan, and, of course, is the head coach of the Southeastern Fire. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the one and only Mr. Clay Roberts. Good to have you here, man.
Yeah, Jared, thanks, man. This will be a lot of fun. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to a great conversation.
So, selfishly, I want to kick things off with the Major Arena Soccer League. That is what sucked me into the sport. When I first started off, my son was playing competitive at U9. Personally, I wanted him to do rec that year because I didn't want to give up my weekends. So he got to play in the halftime of the Florida Tropics game. I had no idea what I was walking into when I went to that arena, and I was sucked in immediately. That is when I was captivated by the game of soccer. So obviously you were head coach at the time. What is it like not only coaching at that level, but ironically you were now you were the coach of who the Florida Tropics Academy coaches are. So you kind of have like that direct line. What is it like being around these guys and watching them kind of do what you've made a living at?
First off, the Florida Tropics, when it first kind of came to town, I was like on the outside going, man, I don't think these people know what they're doing. They initially called me about players at Southeastern. Hey, we want to put together a team. And about 2 weeks later, the guy calls back, says, "You wouldn't mind coaching, would you?" And so literally that was the introduction for the Florida Tropics. And I was like, you know what, this will be fun. You know, this is my hometown. This is where I grew up, and this was part of my career. So to be able to, in the early stages, you know, have some type of impact, influence on it was like a no-brainer. To describe the scene that you walked into, right. You know, it takes a lot of hard work to even get to that game day. And so to put the pieces together to help bring Major Arena Soccer to Lakeland was funny at times, a lot of hard work, you know, the behind the scenes stuff no one knows, you know, that takes place. And then you show up for that fun game. And arena soccer is so fun. You know, you come to one game, you're going to be hooked. It's just fast paced, you know, there's a ton of goals. You know, the knock we get in the outdoor game is you play for so long, you're like, right. Nothing happened. We tied 0-0. Right. It's such a boring game, you know, but arena is different, you know, and there's a bunch of goals, and there's music, and there's lights, and there's excitement. And so
I would agree with that. I think for the casual American fan who is, you know, anti-soccer, if their introduction is go to an indoor game, man, my wife was that way, and she went to a bunch of games and she was hooked, like you said. It's just nonstop action.
If you like hockey, you like arena soccer.
Right.
That's what I always say. And I mean, even like talking to some of the news broadcasters, that's all I say. If you like hockey, you're going to love this game. It's just soccer, and it's a lot of similar rules, actually. But it's a great introduction. You know, It is something that hooks somebody. And so really proud to be a part of Tropics since day one.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, it was a perfect explanation. I mean, I was a casual fan. I didn't know enough about the sport. In fact, I guarantee you have forgotten more about the sport than I know. I mean, even to this day. But for the Major Arena Soccer League, it's what got me to be interested in the game, and now I am highly active on the field soccer side. But it was because of that initial introduction. So I think there's definitely a place for it in the overall arc of anyone who wants to pursue this, which is kind of why I want to kick things off with it. But going back initially, we kind of talked about a little bit with the director, Lucas Teixeira. There is a little bit locally some of a disconnect between the relationship between the Florida Tropics Academy and, of course, the pro side, the Florida Tropics. So he was very good at explaining that it is a separation, which I think is important for people to understand, because although the pro team at the moment is not playing locally, the academy itself is alive, it's healthy, it's moving in the right direction. We're in our third season. And what people don't know is you are also part of the board of directors, which means you have a pretty invested interest in its success, and you have a working relationship with Michael over here. So if you can kind of get in behind the scenes of what with the academy, what is the goal of the academy? Where do you see it moving towards here in Central Florida? Is it a growth thing? Is it a quality? Is it development? What are some of the conversations that are going on behind the scenes?
Yeah. I mean, you want to go?
No, go ahead, Clay.
For me, the evolution of youth soccer with the Tropics has been really from day one a desire. Even before we were what we are, we had what we called community partners, right? And we had a couple different clubs that we were partnering with in the early days of the pro team starting, one for a fan base to be able to say, hey guys, come to soccer. We want to kind of build this youth to pro mentality, and we're the pro team. We don't want anything to do. We just want to help and offer what we can and help bring people out to games and help bring our players out to the fields. And so we just had partners in town, and we actually met that way on the field, right? Our kids were out on the youth side, and it just wasn't going very well. We didn't have as much influence as we wanted to, even though our brand was out there in a uniform, so to speak. It's like we were non-existent. Right. That wasn't what we were hoping for. We were hoping to build relationship, and connect with the Lakeland community. And so that took it, not a negative path. It just wasn't going the way that we hoped. And so the idea of saying, all right, let's just stop that relationship. It's not what we were hoping for. And then with Lucas and Mike coming in and saying, look, here's how we need to do it. We're singing the same song at that point, right? And so now what the authentic relationship between the youth and the pro wanted in the early days, now we really can see a pathway forward. And I think from day one, we always said from a board perspective, we're only worrying about us.
That's right.
Let's do it right. Let's worry about our people. Let's put out the program that we think is best suited for them to develop, to have a relationship, to have a future, right? And we want to, the investment being made to have a future. Right. And so not just feel like they're just another number or us be just another youth soccer club that's formed, which is why we still call it an academy.
That's right.
That's the differential, that puts us, into a different category. And so,
and I think one of the other important things in talking to Clay when we were developing this was, as you can imagine, even being as a professional player, it's not a 12-hour workday. They have extra time, especially in the off season, and so one of Clay's objectives for his players was to provide an opportunity locally for these professionals to have a coaching opportunity to maybe start thinking about the career after playing, and so and also to be able to keep them in the community. So we wouldn't have players bouncing around. They would be like, hey, I live in Lakeland, want to play for Lakeland, and by the way, I want to raise my family here and keep them here. And so I think it all started from that. Kudos to Clay for that mindset, and Lucas, like he mentioned. And so now, what a great opportunity for Lakeland. And we have these professional players that have been doing it forever, being able to teach our kids at a high level. So it's an incredible opportunity here locally. Yeah,
that close connection with a mentor, not even just a mentor, just your favorite player. You know what I mean? Right. You're watching your favorite player play in the games and you connect with them all. Wow, now they're going to be my coach. It's a dream come true for a lot of young, players and young people just to have a great mentor they look up to and then have interaction with them on the day-to-day. And so that investment in the community was always there, and it's so cool to see how it's played out and where it sits right now. And I think even as we talk each time, it seems like we keep coming up with another way to sharpen it and make it better and specific to, what the Tropics Academy is trying to be and still be, in the market that we are, but be very different and desirable. So,
no, that's great. Yeah. So youth sports as a whole, it's kind of an evolving thing. I think they've come leaps and bounds, especially in the last couple of years. I think it's moving in the right direction. But for you specifically, because you spend a lot of your time as a head coach for Southeastern, I think that there must be an invested interest to have a healthy youth sports system, because in the end, that eventually is what funnels some of your player and some of their development. So if you could critique where youth sports is right now, not necessarily with just the academy, but just as a whole, I mean, what are some of the things that you wish were going better, and what are some of the things that they're doing right to kind of set you up and your teams for success as those players kind of move through those systems?
Yeah, I mean, look, in the United States, our biggest problem is we have access to so many sports, right? When you compare to Europe, you compare to South America, soccer is the number one, and it's everywhere. And then the other sports kind of fall in place. And we're different. Our system is different. Our access to sports is different. And so that's the biggest hurdle, is just, do we have all of our athletes playing soccer? And the quick answer is no. The players who are invested in soccer, they're the ones, that we're able to look at and hopefully have academies set up the way that we set up that are investing in them to do it correctly, so that as they're developing in these younger years, they're loving the sport, they're loving the sport correctly, they're being taught correctly. And it's not an idol, it's a way of life, if you will, that they're striving for. And it's all educational based as well. To be a college soccer player, being the soccer player is only half of it. The academics, that's the reason we call them a student athlete. And so it does encourage growth in the academia world as well, even in our development ages. And so I think you even hear our coaches sometimes say, hey, they do check them. Hey, how's school going?
That's right.
What's the total investment? Because that's a holistic player, right? That's a holistic approach.
Right.
We want to see the whole kid develop. And I think our coaches do a great job of investing. And that's where that relationship comes in. They get to know our players, our academy players are connected, and it connects the families as well. So there's an accountability system being set up without anyone ever really talking about it, but that's really what's taking place. And so as the high standard is being held in what we're doing on the field and the games, it's developing that young person, both male and female, correctly for a college pathway. Things that we do poorly at is everyone, it's such a big business now. It's big business. I've ran a large club, one of the largest clubs here in Florida, and it's big money. And unfortunately, with big money come demands and come, hey, expectations that we got to meet certain levels of play. We got to get this league, and you're battling over these things, and it's at the expense of your membership. I think that's the most unique thing about our club, our academy, is that nothing's at the expense of we aren't chasing leagues left and right. We have great partnerships in place that allow us to focus on the development of the player, getting the team in the best place to play, and it's about them. And so a negative that's out there, meaning the competitiveness of the youth soccer market, win at all costs, we lose sight of that. I read an article Landon Donovan just put out, and he's like, I hate my kids' soccer club because I hear them talking about winning, and they're kids.
You see that all the time from these former pros or college players when their kids start entering the system. That you hear that constantly. Yeah,
and it's wrong.
Yep.
It is wrong. Everybody wants to win. Don't get me wrong. I hate losing more than anybody. But it's at the right place that we start to put that as the focus. And so as we have a youth academy going, we want our teams to win. That means you're doing something right. You're graded on excellence, right? And so we want our kids developing and ultimately to win. But it's not win at all cost mentality first. You can't win at all costs if you're not teaching, if you're not connecting. And that really sets us apart, and so that's a negative out there in our market that here with the Tropics Academy, we make it known that's not what we are. We want to win. We want to push our kids to grow. But if they're not growing correctly, then it doesn't matter what we do. We're wasting time and we're wasting resources, and we're just another club. And we don't want to be that, and we're not perfect by any means, right? We're learning as we go, and trying to fix it quickly.
Right? Yeah, winning's the result of doing things the right way and seeing the hard work come to fruition.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So, Michael, you're involved in coaching some of the older players.
That's right.
Older
That's
girls.
right. Yeah.
So I know they're kind of at that age where they're transitioning, and they're looking towards what's next.
That's right.
So, so what are some of the things that they're asking you? I mean, as far as their path, are they coming to you for those things as a coach?
Yeah, that's a great segue, especially when we talk about player development and having a resource like Clay, who's the head coach at Southeastern, as you mentioned. And, Yeah, some of the questions that we get, I talked to you this about the other night out on the practice field. It's incredibly stressful for these 14 to 18-year-olds, and when do you start, and how do you send the videos, and how do you get the coach to look at you, and do freshmen and sophomore even get to play anymore because of the transfer portal, and you got 27-year-olds transferring in, or 23-year-olds competing as an 18-year-old, and so maybe talk to a little bit of the mindset, or maybe what a freshman or sophomore in high school should be thinking about and communicating to the coach. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
How do you get a coach to actually recognize you, or open your email, or open your video, or get you to come to watch you at a game?
Right. I'll start with just saying, look, if you have a desire to play in college, all right, if soccer is something you want to pursue in college, there is a roster there for you. What we do is we muddy it up with, my kid's a Division I school or Division II. We muddy it up. And a lot of times the clubs are responsible for that.
That's right.
Because they say, well, we recruited, or, we put kids here and there, come play in our club. And it's funny to me, right? And so anyone who desires to play college soccer, there's a pathway to ultimately, potentially, getting to reach that goal, right? It may not be at the USF. It may not be at Southeastern. It may not be at Florida Southern. It may be somewhere else. And so there's so many academic pathways, but you got to get yourself out there, right? And there's only one coach at Southeastern. There may be only one assistant coach. There may be a grad assistant. We have roles that we go throughout the day. So to see as many players as possible is difficult. There's showcase events that we go to. We're visible, but our main source of getting to know you is you telling us about yourself.
Okay.
And so as a freshman and sophomore, we may not be able to talk to you per certain rules where you apply, but we can say, hey, we love to see you and build a relationship with you at our next ID camp.
Okay.
And so an ID camp may be the best way to put yourself out there. And in that ID camp, say, Coach, I'm really interested in this school. I always encourage everybody to come up with 5 schools that you're interested in, right? You could come up with 30, right? But just limit it to 5,
right?
Because it's got to have 2 parts. The soccer part, it's a global game, right? We're going to play soccer anywhere. But you also need to be able to have an idea about what you want to study.
Sure.
So even as a freshman and sophomore, start to have conversations with your kids. Hey, what is it that you want to do? I had a conversation with my son when he was 10 years old. What do you want to be when you grow up? And younger. But we need to have those conversations as a freshman and sophomore. What is it that you want to study? Because we need to get you on a pathway of getting you in front of the right people. My school may not offer what you want to study, right?
Yep.
So it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
That's a great point.
And so to be a student athlete, there's 2 parts that you're looking at. And so even as a freshman, sophomore, just go to an ID, build a relationship. As you go into junior, senior, let me back up. Your grades mean everything always, right? And so as soon as you get into high school, grades equate to money.
Yeah.
Right? Financial money.
I've got one of my best friends' daughters she was one of the best players in the state about 10, 12 years ago. And she did not get the opportunities at some of the larger state schools in Florida because her grades were not up to snuff, and lost a lot of those opportunities.
Right. And so grades equate to money, right? In the college soccer world. And so be a great student. Put yourself out there, go to ID camps, send emails.
Okay.
Send an email with a player profile. Develop a player profile.
Right.
Who are you? What's your position? How many years you've been playing? Where do you play? High school, club. Let us know. Also, what tournaments you're playing in. What's your schedule of that tournament? Basically, make it easy for me to come see you.
Right.
Right. Because our days are only so full, and to get yourself in the lineup is the best way for us to get to see you. And so, in that player profile, what your academics information is also there. So as I'm sitting on the sideline reading about Jared out there, who's a great soccer player. Oh, wow, he's got a 3.5 GPA. I'm equating that's going to be about a $10,000 to $12,000 academic scholarship. So now I can really think about, and he's playing the position I really need.
Right.
Let's really evaluate him, and let's actually start to think while I'm sitting there in my lawn chair.
Yeah.
I actually have some athletic scholarship available. I could help this kid, and he can help us. So that's how we put it together.
Okay.
As crazy as it sounds, it's as quickly as it sounds as well.
Yeah, no, that's really great, because I always hear about the soccer piece and the videos and the emails,
Right, but the academic is always lost.
Correct. Yeah.
100%.
And because this isn't with, I'm a big soccer guy, but it's not college football or college basketball where the big money is. So allocating those scholarship money or dollars if that's of importance to the player.
Right.
That academic piece, especially for the coach, it sounds like is very important.
Yeah, no, it's important for the coach because everyone doesn't have full rides.
That's right.
We got a certain allotment that we can deal with, right? And so we have to do a good job with making our budget stretch as far as possible to be as successful as possible.
Right.
And so, it's best for the parent as well to know, hey, my kid is going to receive this, means I may not have anything out of pocket. Great job, son or daughter, you did your job, right? It didn't cost me money to go to school. And some other places, it's going to cost money. You're going to take loans. You're going to do that because that's your investment in yourself. Right? That's your one loan. I say always take that loan. Invest in yourself, but it does start on a soccer field. Those questions and how that puzzle starts to come together from a college coach. We're thinking that way.
Yeah. And one last one. I know we're kind of running toward the end here. So as a final maybe question, or if Captain has something before we go, in terms of, and I realize this probably is position dependent and player dependent, but for our young players out there, are there certain skills, maybe a top 2 or 3, where like, man, and this might be your preference to say, but what's super important, is it like I look for a player that's super fast or super technical or work ethic, kind of maybe talk to that so players can hone in on that while they're practicing or at home?
Yeah, no, I'm going to take the academy approach. We want the total player.
Okay.
We really do. And so position specific is definitely there, but we also are looking at, is their fitness going to match the college level? Is their physicality going to match the college level? The position is great. It might be what I need, right? Or I may not need a right back. But you at your university, you need a right back, and you're still looking for that same physicality, technical ability, soccer IQ, right? And so I'll leave it those 3 places: who you are physically, right? Who you are technically, and what is your general soccer IQ. I'm going to be able to pick up on that while I'm scouting you. I'm looking at you and recruiting you and saying, do you fit our profile of player? And so those are kind of the 3 areas I would say to focus in on. Make sure that you are doing the fitness the coach is asking you to do, right? Working on your technical skills and that extra night of training and banging against the wall in your house.
That's
do those things. But your general soccer IQ, and that comes back to the development of the club. That's where our coaches come in, and I feel set us apart here in Lakeland. They're putting the growth, the tactical growth, the general soccer IQ into our players, and that's huge from a college coach perspective.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one thing that we're hammering the U14s, 15s, 16s, 17s, that soccer IQ piece, and also go to a game, watch soccer on TV, watch how the pros or the collegiate folks do it. Is a great idea.
Yeah, for sure.
What about intangibles? I mean, we talk a lot about the physical and the soccer IQ, but what about attitude? I mean, how much does that factor into this? It sounds cliche, but being good teammates, being easy to forget mistakes. Because soccer, the interesting thing about this sport is mistakes are part of the game. I mean, it's amazing how much players beat themselves up for losing the ball, but it's all in the recovery. I've noticed it's all in the bounce back, especially in this sport.
Absolutely. We call that psychological pillar, right? We got 4 pillars, and that's the psychological pillar that we're looking at in development. And your character is a lot. At the end of the day, as a student athlete of a university, you're representing that university. Mm-hmm. And so I'm charged with, as a head coach, not just being a good soccer coach and teaching a game and winning games, but also putting people out there that are representing our university. And so who you are as a young person means a lot. I don't have a ton of time to babysit anymore,
right?
As a college coach, right? You're supposed to be developing as a young man or a young woman, and so character means a lot. Who you are off the field, how you deal with stuff on the field, it shows and it matters. And so that is a development pillar that oftentimes is neglected, but it is very important. There's more and more coming out about ways to train that, and clubs are starting to implement that. And so there's no doubt that I want to know that you're going to represent us the way that I expect whenever I'm not around. Yeah. And that's something we talk about even with our team in Southeastern. We talked about it with the Tropics, the pro team. Yeah. And so that's something that shouldn't be neglected at a youth level as well.
That's awesome. Any teasers for the MASL before we sign off? Just curious. Just got throw that in there.
Put on the spot. Wow.
I will say this. I was so frustrated to receive a call that it's not going to happen this year. Yep. But I also understand completely why. And I appreciate it, to be honest. The call came that if we can't do it correctly, we're not going to do it. And I'm so behind that. And I think anybody would that's in business. And so it's there. It's not gone. It's just still dormant. And at the right time, the right people will be behind it locally, and excitement will be geared back up for it.
So you're saying there's a chance.
In the meantime, I don't know if Coach Victor's going back to Baltimore. Or
That's right.
Tag on to Coach Drew out in San Diego. Whoever your favorite Tropics player was that's still playing, still be a great fan of them. Reach out to them and stay connected. It's a great game to.
No, it's an amazing game.
That's right.
It really is.
So we can still watch it online. The games at MASL, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Clay, appreciate you taking the time. Got some great advice, some good tips for the players. And, I think the Academy is definitely in good hands for sure. There's no question. And, of course, if you haven't followed us on Instagram, that's really the hub of all things for the Florida Tropics Academy. If you want to get the inside of the scoop, what's going on behind the scenes, or just watch us not take ourselves too serious, go to Florida Tropics Academy. That is our Instagram page. That's all the time we have for now. These have been your Tropical Tidbits. That is Clay Roberts, and I am Captain Mortgage. We'll see you on the next one.